My wife's high school sweetheart returned to town as a millionaire. She immediately told me, "I think we married too young." I agreeably signed the divorce papers. 6 months later, the ex was arrested for fraud and she was calling me begging for help. I'm Pierce, 37 years old, been married for 12 years. Thought we had something solid, met Melissa in college, married at 25, bought a house in the suburbs that we'd almost paid off. I work as a project manager in IT, pulling down about 85K. We've got an 8-year-old son, Owen. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. Good schools, weekend soccer games, family dinners around the kitchen table I'd refinish myself. 3 months ago, everything changed when her high school sweetheart rolled back into town. She mentioned him casually at first. "Oh, Bradford Hayes just moved back from California. Remember him? My ex from senior year." I vaguely remembered the name from old stories. They dated through most of high school before going to different colleges. Then it was coffee to catch up as old friends. "Just catching up on the last 20 years, she explained when she got home an hour later than expected. Then lunch because we have so much to talk about. Then dinner because he's got these amazing business stories. I'm not stupid. I watched her start dressing differently. Better perfume that I didn't recognize. New clothes that definitely weren't in our budget. She'd check her phone constantly, smiling at messages she never showed me. When I asked about her day, the answers got shorter, more evasive. "How was lunch with Bradford?" "Fine, we just talked." "About what?" "You know, old times, his business ventures, nothing important." But everything about her body language said it was important. Very important. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in late October. Owen was at my parents' for the night, and she sat me down at our kitchen table, the one I'd spent weekends restoring, sanding away years of wear and applying fresh stain. I'd been proud of that project, bringing new life to something worn and forgotten. "We need to talk," she said. Classic opener that never leads anywhere good. I put down my phone, gave her my attention. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her wedding ring. "I've been thinking about us, about our marriage, and I think we married too young." I didn't interrupt, just waited. Sometimes silence gets you more truth than questions. "We were 25. We didn't know who we really were yet. Now I'm 35 and realizing there's so much I missed out on. I feel like I'm living someone else's life." "Okay," I said quietly. She blinked, clearly expecting pushback. "Okay?" "Yeah, if that's how you feel." "I think we should separate, maybe get divorced. I need to figure out who I am outside this marriage." The words hung in the air between us. I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman I'd shared 12 years with, who'd given me my son, who I'd thought I'd grow old with. "Is this about a Bradford?" Her face flushed immediately. "This isn't about him. This is about me, about us. We're not right for each other anymore." "All right, I'll call a lawyer tomorrow." She looked genuinely shocked. "You're not even going to try to save this?" I studied her face, searching for any sign that she wanted me to fight. "You're sitting here telling me you don't want to be married anymore. You've been going out with another guy for weeks. What exactly am I supposed to save? I thought you'd care more. I care enough not to drag this out. You want out, you're out, but we need to figure out what's best for Owen." She got defensive then. "You're being incredibly cold about this. You want me to cry and beg? That's not happening. You made your choice. I'm respecting it." The conversation lasted another 20 minutes, covering practical details. Custody arrangements. Who would tell Owen when she'd move out? She kept looking at me like I was a stranger, probably because she'd expected drama, tears, desperate pleas to reconsider. Instead, I was already thinking logistics. How to minimize the impact on Owen, how to split assets fairly, how to maintain some dignity in what felt like a complete dismantling of everything we'd built together. That conversation was Wednesday. By Friday, I'd contacted a divorce attorney my buddy recommended after his own divorce, someone practical who doesn't drag things out unnecessarily, filed no fault, agreed to 50-50 custody, and split assets down the middle to keep things moving. "You're sure about this?" my lawyer asked during our first meeting. "Once we file, there's no taking it back easily." "She's sure. I'm just respecting her decision." He nodded, probably having seen this scenario play out dozens of times. "All right. With no contested issues, we can have this wrapped up in 6 to 8 weeks. The divorce moved fast because neither of us fought it. House went up for sale. We'd built up about 180K in equity over the years, split our savings, retirement accounts, everything down the middle. I kept the kitchen table and my woodworking tools in the garage. She called them hobby clutter anyway, said they didn't fit her new aesthetic vision. Telling Owen was the hardest part. We sat him down together one evening, explained that Mommy and Daddy were going to live in different houses, but that we both loved him very much. "Is it because I left my bike in the driveway?" he asked, and my heart broke a little. "No, buddy. This has nothing to do with you. Sometimes grown-ups decide they're better as friends than as married people." He nodded solemnly, processing this information with the resilience that kids somehow manage. "Will I still get to see both of you?" "Every week," I promised. "That will never change." 1 month after she moved out, her Facebook relationship status changed to "in a relationship with Bradford tagged." The comments were brutal, her friends congratulating them, saying they were meant to be and finally found your way back to each other. My mom called that evening. "You're really not going to fight for her?" "She doesn't want to be fought for, Mom. She wants to be with him." "You're giving up too easily." Or "I'm respecting her decision like an adult." Mom wasn't happy, but she eventually came around. My dad was more direct. "Son, if she'd rather chase fool's gold than appreciate what she had, that's her loss." The divorce finalized 6 weeks ago. We each walked away with about 90K from the house after paying off the mortgage and fees. I moved into a smaller place closer to work, set up my woodworking area on the covered patio. Started taking custom furniture commissions. Turns out there's decent money in handmade pieces if you're good at it. Meanwhile, Melissa was living her best life on Instagram. Every post showed designer handbags, expensive restaurants, weekend trips to resorts I'd never heard of. Bradford drove a Tesla Model S, wore tailored suits that probably cost more than my monthly salary, took her places that cost more for one meal than our old grocery budget. Her posts were carefully curated perfection. Champagne glasses raised in toasts at sunset, designer shoes on marble floors. Living my best life captions with heart emojis. The comments from her friends were predictably supportive. "You look so happy," and "This is what you deserve." I muted her on social media but didn't block her. Blocking felt like I cared too much, and I was working hard on not caring at all. Life was quiet but good. Owen stayed with me every other weekend and Wednesday nights. We'd work on projects together. He loves helping me sand wood and apply stain. Kids got steady hands and an eye for detail. Those evenings became precious to me, just the two of us in the garage, working with our hands, talking about his school day or whatever was on his mind. "Dad, why do you like making furniture?" he asked one evening while we worked on refinishing an old chair. "Because when you build something with your hands, it's yours. Really yours. Nobody can take that away from you." He nodded like he understood, though I'm not sure he grasped the deeper meaning yet. During this period, I threw myself into work and my woodworking. The routine was therapeutic. Wake up, coffee, work my regular IT job managing software development projects, come home, spend time with Owen when he was there, work on furniture commissions when he wasn't. Simple, predictable, peaceful. My first big commission came through social media. A woman saw photos of the chair Owen and I had refinished and wanted a matching dining table. $20,400 for materials and labor. I spent 3 weeks on it, working evenings and weekends, losing myself in the precision required for proper joinery, the satisfaction of seeing raw wood transformed into something beautiful and functional. When I delivered it, she was thrilled. Posted photos of it on her own. Social media tagged me, and within a week I had 3 more inquiries. Word of mouth is powerful in the custom furniture world. Around this time, I started noticing changes in Owen's behavior when he came back from his mother's place. He'd be quieter than usual, sometimes asking questions that seemed too mature for an 8-year-old. "Dad, what's a millionaire?" "Someone who has $1 million. Why?" "Mom's friend Bradford says he's going to be one soon." I kept my voice neutral. "That's nice for him." "He bought Mom a really expensive purse, like really expensive. She showed me the price tag." I filed that information away but didn't comment. Whatever financial arrangement they had wasn't my business anymore. 2 weeks after that conversation, something interesting happened at the hardware store. I was picking up wood stain for a cabinet project when a guy approached me. Mid-40s, wearing work clothes, looked familiar but I couldn't place him. "You're Pierce Coleman, right? Melissa's ex-husband?" "Yeah." "I'm Danny Rodriguez. I used to work with Bradford on some real estate deals. He glanced around like he was checking to see who might overhear. Look, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but you dodged a bullet with that situation. How so? That guy's whole operation is sketchy as hell. I partnered with him on a property flip last year that went completely sideways. Lost 15 grand before I got smart and pulled out. Everything about him is smoke and mirrors, the cars, the clothes, the lifestyle. It's all leveraged to the max. I thanked him for the information, but honestly, I filed it under not my problem anymore. Melissa had made her choice. If Bradford turned out to be less than advertised, that was between them. The woodworking business continued to grow. I raised my prices after the third commission and still had more work than I could handle. There's something deeply satisfying about creating furniture that will outlast you, pieces that families will gather around for generations. Each project taught me something new about the craft, and I found myself looking forward to those evening hours in the garage more than anything else. Owen seemed to enjoy our workshop time together too. He'd gotten good at sorting screws by size, knew the difference between various sandpaper grits, could hand me tools without being asked. We didn't talk about his mother's new relationship, but I could tell it was on his mind sometimes. Dad, do you think Mom is happy? I hope so, buddy. That's what she wanted. She seems different. Like, she smiles a lot, but her eyes look worried. Kids notice things adults think they're hiding. I chose my words carefully. Sometimes when people make big changes in their lives, it takes time to adjust. Your mom is figuring out some new things. Are you happy? I looked at him, this wise little person who somehow understood that happiness was more complicated than just smiling a lot. Yeah, Owen, I am. And I was. Not the giddy, Instagram-worthy happiness that Melissa was performing, but a deeper contentment. My life had direction, purpose, stability. I was building something, both literally with my hands and figuratively with my relationship with my son. The child support payments went out automatically every month, $800, calculated as a reasonable percentage of my income. I never missed a payment, never complained about it. Owen was my responsibility regardless of where he slept on any given night. 3 months into this new routine, things began to shift. Melissa's Instagram posts became less frequent, and when they did appear, they seemed forced. The captions got shorter. The smiles looked tighter. Owen started mentioning that Mom seemed tired a lot and that Bradford was always talking on the phone about business stuff. Then, during one of Owen's weekends with me, Melissa called. She rarely called when Owen was at my place unless there was an emergency. Can I pick up Owen early on Sunday? I need to run some errands and Bradford has meetings all day. Sure. Everything okay? A pause. Yeah, everything's fine. Just busy. But her voice had an edge to it I recognized from the last months of our marriage. Stress masked as casual conversation. That Sunday when she came to pick up Owen, she looked different. Still put together, but the designer clothes seemed less effortless somehow. Her smile was bright but brittle when she hugged our son goodbye. See you Wednesday, buddy, I told Owen. See you Wednesday, Dad? After they left, I went back to the garage and lost myself in sanding a tabletop. The repetitive motion was meditative, gave my mind space to wander. Something was off, but it wasn't my problem to solve anymore. I'd learned that lesson the hard way during our marriage. You can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. 2 weeks later, while I was at the hardware store buying supplies for a custom bookshelf commission, I ran into Danny Rodriguez again. This time he looked more urgent. Pierce, right? We talked a few weeks ago about Bradford? Yeah, I remember. Look, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but that whole situation has gotten worse. A friend of mine invested money with him, some kind of real estate venture, 30 grand. Now Bradford's giving him the runaround about when he'll see returns. I selected the wood screws I needed, kept my voice neutral. That's unfortunate. The thing is, my friend isn't the only one. There are at least 3 other people I know who've given him money for these investment opportunities. Nobody's seen a dime back. Danny followed me to the checkout counter. I'm not trying to get in your business, but your ex-wife, she's not involved in any of that, is she? The question hit me wrong. Why would you think that? Just, she's with him, right? And if he's running some kind of scheme... He trailed off, probably seeing something in my expression. Whatever's happening between them isn't my concern anymore. He nodded quickly. Right, of course. I just thought you should know. I paid for my supplies and left. But Danny's words stuck with me. Not because I was worried about Melissa, she'd made her choices clear, but because of Owen. If there was financial instability in her household, that could affect my son. That evening I called my lawyer. Hypothetically, I said, if my ex-wife got involved in some kind of financial trouble with her new boyfriend, could that affect custody arrangements? Depends on the nature of the trouble. Why? Is there something specific you're concerned about? Just gathering information. Well, unless there's evidence of illegal activity or endangerment to the child, financial problems alone wouldn't typically change custody. But if you have specific concerns, we should discuss them. I filed that conversation away too. No need to create problems that didn't exist yet. The following weekend, Owen came back from his mother's place with more questions. Dad, what's bankruptcy? I looked up from the cabinet I was assembling. Where did you hear that word? Mom was talking to her friend on the phone. She sounded upset. I set down my screwdriver, gave him my full attention. Bankruptcy is when someone can't pay their bills anymore. It's a legal way to get help with debt. Is Mom in trouble? This was delicate territory. I couldn't badmouth his mother, but I also couldn't lie to him. I don't know, buddy. If she was having any problems, she'd figure them out. Your mom is smart. Bradford yells a lot when he's on the phone now. Yeah? Not at Mom, at other people. About money stuff. I filed that away too. The picture Danny Rodriguez had painted was starting to feel more credible. 3 days later, my phone rang at 6:30 a.m. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Pierce? It's me. Melissa's voice, shaky and thin. I sat up in bed. Why are you calling from a random number? My phone got shut off. I'm using my friend's phone. Red flags everywhere. Okay. Can we meet? I need to talk to you about something important. We're divorced, Melissa. We only need to talk about Owen. Please, it's urgent. Just coffee. 1 hour. Something in her voice, not manipulation but genuine desperation, made me agree. Fine. The diner on Maple Street. 1 hour. I showered, got dressed, and drove to the diner wondering what crisis she'd created for herself now. When I walked in, I barely recognized her. Hair unwashed, no makeup, wearing old jeans and a hoodie instead of the designer clothes from her Instagram. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. What's going on? I asked, sliding into the booth across from her. I made a mistake. I waited. Bradford isn't who I thought he was. The business stuff, the money, most of it's borrowed or fake. I don't even know how to explain it. Why are you telling me this? Because I need help. Her voice cracked. I gave him money, Pierce. A lot of money. The waitress came over, filled our coffee cups. I waited until she left. How much? $45,000. I nearly choked on my coffee. You gave Bradford $45,000? My half from the house sale. He had this investment opportunity, said I could double my money in 6 months. He showed me paperwork, contracts. It all looked legitimate. And now? I can't get it back. He keeps saying it's tied up in the investment, that it needs time to mature. But it's been 2 months, and I'm starting to think... She stopped, looked down at her hands. Starting to think what? That it was all fake. The irony was staggering. She'd left our stable life for this fantasy, invested her entire divorce settlement with a man she barely knew as an adult, and now sat across from me looking like her world had collapsed. What do you want from me, Melissa? I thought maybe you could talk to him, guy to guy, explain that I really need some of that money back. I actually laughed, couldn't help it. You want me to help you get money back from the guy you left me for? He's not my boyfriend anymore. We broke up when I started asking too many questions about the investment. Still not my problem. You were always good at talking to people, being reasonable. He might listen to you. I set down my coffee cup, looked her straight in the eye. Here's a thought. Get a lawyer. If he took your money under false pretenses, that's fraud. I can't afford a lawyer right now. I had to move back in with my parents. My credit cards are maxed out because Bradford was an authorized user and he ran up $15,000 in charges. The scope of her financial destruction was becoming clear. She hadn't just lost her divorce settlement. She'd been completely cleaned out. Then I guess you learned an expensive lesson about giving large sums of money to high school sweethearts who flash expensive watches. She started crying then, real tears, not manipulation. I could tell the difference after 12 years of marriage. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you, but I'm asking for help. And I'm saying no. I stood up, put a 20 on the table for both our coffees. Don't contact me again unless it's about Owen. I left her sitting there, drove home, and went back to work on a dining room chair I was restoring. The familiar motions of sanding and refinishing helped calm the anger I felt building. Not anger at her asking for help, anger at myself for even considering it for a split second. Over the next 3 days, she called 6 more times from different numbers. I answered the first 2, told her to stop calling, then started ignoring them all. Finally, I sent one text. Contact me again and I'm filing harassment charges. That bought me a week of silence. Then my brother called. Dude, turn on Channel 7 right now. I pulled up the local news website instead. Top story, local businessman arrested in investment fraud. Scheme. There was Bradford in handcuffs being led away from a luxury apartment complex. According to the article, he'd been running a Ponzi scheme for 2 years, taking money from at least 15 people with promises of high returns on real estate investments that didn't exist. Total estimated fraud, $1.2 million. The Tesla was leased. The apartment was rented. The expensive suits, the fancy dinners, the whole lifestyle, all of it built on other people's money. My phone started buzzing immediately. Melissa's mom. Did you see the news? Yeah. She lost $45,000, Pierce. They're saying victims might get back 30 cents on the dollar if they're lucky. That's less than $15,000. That's rough. That's all you have to say? That's rough? What do you want me to say? That you'll help her. She's drowning financially. She might have to declare bankruptcy. Her credit is destroyed. Those are consequences of her choices. She's the mother of your child. And Owen has a stable home with me, which is what matters. You're being cruel. I'm being smart. Good night. I hung up and blocked her number. The next morning brought a coordinated campaign, 17 missed calls from various numbers, all people connected to Melissa trying to get me to do the right thing. Her friends, her cousins, even her old co-workers. I didn't listen to any voicemails, just blocked each number as they called. Here's what everyone seemed to miss. Helping her would be the worst thing I could do. Not just for me, but for Owen. My son needs to learn that actions have consequences, that when you make choices, you own the results. If I swoop in with money every time Melissa makes a bad decision, what does that teach him? That there's always a safety net? That he can treat people badly and someone will always clean up the mess? I've got $90K in the bank from the house sale. Could I help her financially? Sure. But that would make me her backup plan, her safety net for bad decisions, and I refuse to teach my son that's how relationships work. My therapist, I started seeing someone after the divorce, says I'm setting healthy boundaries, that I'm not responsible for fixing problems I didn't create, especially for someone who chose to leave. The woodworking business has been my salvation. Finished a dining table commission last week, $4,500 for materials and labor. Client wants matching chairs next month. I'm booked solid for the next 8 weeks, have a waiting list forming. There's real money in custom furniture if you're skilled and reliable. Owen asked me yesterday why mommy looks sad when she picks him up for their visits. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't work out the way they hoped, buddy, but that's how people learn. He nodded like he understood. Are you sad, Dad? No, Owen, I'm not sad. And I'm not. Some days I miss being married, having someone to share dinner with, talk about Owen's school day, but I don't miss walking on eggshells wondering if I was enough, being someone's second choice. Last week, Owen and I finished restoring an old wooden chest we'd found at a garage sale. As we applied the final coat of stain, he asked me why I liked fixing old furniture. Because sometimes things get damaged or forgotten, but that doesn't mean they're worthless. With patience and the right care, you can make them beautiful again. Like new? Better than new. Because now they have character, and you know they can survive tough times. I think he's starting to understand that some things are worth preserving, worth fighting for, and some things, no matter how much work you put in, are just meant to be left behind. The difference is knowing which is which. As for Melissa, I genuinely hope she figures things out, gets the help she needs, learns from this experience. But I won't be part of that journey. I've got furniture to build, a son to raise right, and a life that finally makes sense. That's enough for me.